Good morning. This is Talking Devils, the leading independent Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by my good friend David Murphy. How are you doing today, Dave?
Yeah, not too bad. Eager to talk about a win.
Yeah. Before we
Win
do
on
that,
top.
we do want to talk about the um, distressing news. We all may have been caught off guard by this. Newcastle, where it's been revealed that now, Dave, are you sitting down? Are you sitting comfortably?
I'm sitting down, but I
It
might
has
fall
been
off my chair with this news.
it has been revealed that the Saudi state were involved in the takeover. They're involved in the running of the club of Newcastle.
I don't
WhatsApp
believe.
messages
Wow.
have revealed this. Now, the good news is that Newcastle fans are out to defend this on social media, because obviously the big thing was Amanda Staveley at the takeover when it was happening, saying the Saudi state weren't involved in this, and this is why the takeover got ratified. And now all the Newcastle fans are saying, well, takeovers and running of the club is two very different things, which, seems completely reasonable stand to take on events. Dave seems to have disappeared. Actually, here to talk about Manchester United's 2-1 win over Brentford. So let's get into that. Dave is back.
I think we got hacked by the Saudis.
Yeah, too much truth. Let me get onto that before we talk about United, then give you a chance to talk about it. I mean, their defense, the Newcastle fans' defense online is that takeover of a club and a running of a club are two different things, which are just they think, well, why? How is that a defense? Um, yeah, that's the story coming out. I mean, there's a thing in football, right? Well, actually, in life, really. And don't I know it? It's happened to me too many times where something that bad happens so far long ago that you just go like, "No, I can't do anything about it now." Like that's their attempt at a defense, really. Um, it's a weird one, isn't it? Well, how do you take this? Is this one because Chelsea had the takeover forced on them? The most recent one where they had to force. I know that's a different thing. It was the war in Ukraine and everything like that. But you have to. By the way, there's some United fans watching this or listening to this will be saying like they wish that some kind of forced takeover, a forced sale had happened to us in the last 15 years. What do you make of this? It's silly, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, now the FA and the FA are rightly screwed. To be honest, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it because I think everyone and anyone knew outside of the FA that he was involved and the government was involved, but they obviously I don't know greased the wheels and got it through. And now what are the FA going to do? Are they going to spend the next 4 years like they did with City talking about it before they actually decide not to bring up charges and then do nothing about it?
Yeah.
It just screams even more so for the regulator. Because if they don't bring in, and it has to be an independent one from the government, if they don't bring in a regulator now, this is only going to get a lot worse because other states are going to look at this and go, well, if they can get away with it, why can't we? But it's mind blowing that the FA would think that they weren't involved or would try to fool us into believing they weren't involved. And the truth gets out in the end. And it is funny to see Newcastle fans, defending it.
Yeah.
I mean, silly.
What are you gonna do? Like we're unfamiliar with what happens on social media. You know exactly what's going to happen with City fans as well over the next few months. With everyone's legal experts, aren't they? And you never find a City fan who won't believe that they aren't entitled to all that money. You'll never find that objectivity. So one would suspect there's a little bit of bias, but that's what we all love about football, right? Robbie says, good morning, gents. Enjoying you from the comfort of the sofa with a week off work. All right for some there, Robbie. And Dan says, morning, guys. Once we get Fenerbahce and West Ham away done, we are we've got a run of home games. Surely that has to be the time for us to get a good winning run. We'll get on to that in a bit, yeah, for sure. Morning, Robbie and Dan. Hope you're doing well. Before we start with the game, it's a year ago today that Sir Bobby Charlton passed away. United marked the occasion very well at the time, and obviously, it was news that had been sort of, I wouldn't say like that it was coming really, because it still caught us off guard, but there'd been a few rumours earlier in the year. There'd been a couple of those rumours earlier in the year where, it sounds like news might break or something like that, and then when it did hit, obviously it was colossal because of what he is and what he represents to the club still. A year on now, you look back and it's strange, the illness that took him, he was away from the public eye for a while anyway, so it doesn't really feel like so much has changed in the space of a year, that he wasn't always prominent at United games anymore. And then he was gone, and everyone talked about him and paid tributes to him in the press. Dave's gone again. Bring Dave back in again. And there's a Dave circling around, but he's like, right, not the best time for that to come. I was going to come to you and talk about Bobby Charlton. But yeah, in the year that, he's been gone, it doesn't really feel like he's been gone in a strange way because of the fact that he wasn't around in the public eye for a while before that. Yeah. And there were, the way that people talked about him has never really changed because of what he did and what he contributed to the game. How does it feel for you like a year on? Because I mean, we there are certain figureheads in United passing, like Matt Busby was one, and then Bobby Charlton's really the next one after that. These gargantuan figures in United history that George Best obviously in 2005. These like gargantuan figures in United history that go, and then but their presence in the sort of club's language and dictionary lives on. It never sort of goes away because of the way that the club celebrates its past. I mean, from the club itself, but to the supporters as well. You talk about Bobby Charlton in a way that we never really stopped.
Yeah, no, I mean, every club has its legends, but I think we're fortunate enough to have ones that are in the probably top 1% of legends, and Bobby Charlton is right up there. With as you said, with Sir Matt, George Best. There was, as you rightly said, there was rumours coming up to it that his health wasn't the best. He had stepped away from the club, but it actually popped up on my feed the other day, showing that the training session he had at the new camp in '99. Which kind of brought a smile to my face and didn't look out of place. I'm not sure what age he was in '99. I can't do the math in my head too quickly. But yeah, that brought a smile to my face. But like I said, there's club legends and there's club legends, and we've been fortunate enough to have some that are absolutely beyond a lot of them. It's kind of hard to put into words, and being honest with you, I'm a bit stumped. But maybe one of the things that we've kind of that as football fans we kind of forget how good he was. I do remember recent comments by certain individuals trying to claim that Harry Kane was the best England player ever. Obviously never seen even a 10-second clip of Bobby Charlton playing for England, but he was an absolute icon for United and even more so for England. He held on to that record, for the longest of time, which obviously was beaten by Rooney and I think now by Kane as well. But yeah, it doesn't even feel like a year that he's gone. But an absolutely massive part of Manchester United's history, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the stands, with the naming of the stands. If we do actually go to a brand new stadium, are we going to keep the Sir Alex Ferguson stand? Are we going to keep the Bobby Charlton stand? So I believe we should. But yeah, it doesn't even feel like a year, to be honest, Wayne. It's fluent.
Yeah. If there's one player you're going to choose to, you pick one player from United's history to tell the story of the club. You said that career is the story of the club. Then it's Bobby Charlton's without a question. What he went through, what he came through, and what he achieved is just phenomenal. Okay, so Manchester United 2, Brentford 1. We were there almost a year ago, actually, to the day when United 2, Brentford 1 happened. similar circumstances, but also very different. United going a goal down after playing quite well, actually. No, sorry, playing quite well. Playing well enough to not think that they were a goal behind, and then the sort of cacophony of incidents that happened right on half time to contrive that goal into existence was just a sort of manipulation of events that you think can only happen to a team in crisis. So United did well to resolve the issues in the second half and come back to win, and not need 2 injury time Scott McTominay goals this time. The second half performance was much better, and Eric Ten Hag's still in a job coming into this game, which was a collective surprise. Really, I don't think when we lost to Spurs, I don't think either of us thought that this time, in 2 or 3 weeks, we'd be sat talking about him still leading United into a game at Old Trafford. So you do look for progress. Progress comes in results and performances. Did we see that on Saturday? Partly we did. First of all, we'll talk about the goals themselves and in particular their goal. But the performance itself, the events on Saturday, going behind and coming back, the performance in the second half. Was it something good for you? Do you look at it? I mean, any win's a good thing, but do you look at it as like a positive indication of a step in the right direction, considering what's happened, the noise around Ten Hag?
Yeah, I think it was a positive win. I mean, you can have wins and you can have positive wins. A positive win is where you actually take a good bit out of it. And, we've had wins down, over the past year or two where it's just we're taking the win and that's all we take from the game. I thought we played pretty well, especially in the second half. We go a goal down, and it concerns you with this team at times that they're mentally weak. I think we tend to collapse a lot of times if we're a goal up, and then a team comes back and nicks one, and then all of a sudden we just collapse. I don't know why we don't show that same fighting spirit from the word, from the first whistle, because it was something that I was kind of happy with. I thought the team he put out was pretty strong. I think we're going to miss Mainu a lot over the next couple of weeks. But I thought the team he put out was really strong. I'm a massive fan of De Ligt. I really am. Johnny Evans came in and did another phenomenal job putting Martinez out on the left. And I thought in general we play better with Højlund. We really do. We have someone that can hold the ball up. Marcus Rashford had a fantastic game. Garnacho speaks for itself. I mean, the goal itself was phenomenal. 9 times out of 10, they get ballooned over the bar into Rosie. But his composure, the pass from Rashford across was phenomenal. It was inch perfect. And then the winning goal, everything about the winning goal was just sublime. It really was, all the way down to the finish. The little dink over the keeper. And I don't think we were really in trouble after that. I really don't. I think we well deserved that game or that win. And yeah, I was really happy. Disappointed to concede the goal. Can fully understand why De Ligt had to go off. I mean, he literally had a tap of blood running out of his head. You got to ask questions of the physio for the second time he tried to patch him up. Why didn't he go all Steve Bruce, and wrap him in a big bandage and send him back on? But the reaction from De Ligt after we conceded the goal is something that I want to see from players that come to Manchester United. He wasn't happy at all, and that made me happy.
Yeah. Just got a couple of comments in here. Robbie, talking about Sir Bobby, of course, said he had a dignity that spoke across all generations. Patrick says, morning, gents. Wayne, good to hear you say that United weren't playing too badly at half time. In our instant gratification and judgment age of today, it seems goals shapes narratives and perception. Yeah, that's true, Patrick. Good to hear from you, by the way. But I do feel like, obviously goals do change games, and the thing that you want to see from United is a reaction. And, like Dave said, we've seen instances where United have gone up and just sort of capitulate within themselves. We've seen cases where you go down and capitulate. So it was all a case of seeing what character they had in the side. I did find that first half succession of events really strange because De Ligt was booked for the head injury, for getting his head in the way of the knee, which is the first time I've ever seen that happen, by the way. I've ever seen that happen, that a player goes in the natural position with his head and the opposing player goes in with his knee. A foul is given against the defender and he's booked for that. And to add insult to injury, he goes down with an obvious wound. Everyone can see that from the start. The referee doesn't think, oh, do you know what? I'll change my mind on this or anything. Like, he's just like, all right, this is how it's going to go. And that obviously comes at some cost to United. I mean, you can't do anything about the collision. The referee's handling of that was horrific anyway. I did feel for the goal though. Dalot is obviously. I mean, we're right on half time. We've played 5 minutes or 4 minutes of stoppage time. Right on half time. The second is about to. The whistle's about to blow any second. Dalot's throw is so lazy. Eriksen is too short for him, or the distance is just not good enough for him to get there, and you've created an issue. And yeah, all right, the referee's ordered that De Ligt off, which I think is. I get he had to come off because of the blood that was pouring from his head at that point, but when United initially had that free kick, they had to go down to 10 men for like 3 or 4 minutes because De Ligt was being treated. The referee has not helped United at all in either of those circumstances. Yeah, all right, the physio should have tied United up, but why isn't there another player going down?
Yeah.
Why isn't there another player going down, forcing that stoppage to just be delayed? Do you know what I mean? That's why you take one for the team at that. Other teams do that all the time. I just didn't understand why we allowed ourselves to be at a disadvantage at that moment in time, and then they concede a goal from it. I mean, you can blame United's physios or the team for not patching up correctly the first time round. Maybe they thought they were doing the best job they could in the circumstances. Just a horrendous series of events, really, that led to that. So it's farcical, really.
No, it really is, and it could only happen to us, really, with our luck over the past few years. But there was numerous errors leading up to that, and I thought that the marking for the corner, you could argue that De Ligt would have maybe been on him, but we still had 9 other outfield players, not including the goalkeeper, that could have picked them up, and he just waltzed right into the box, pushed Dalot out of the way as if he wasn't made of paper, and then just buried it. It was schoolyard goal. That's what it was. It was just terrible. It was when Dalot is not on his game, he's really poor, and for that goal he was really, really poor. Like I said, I don't blame the officials. I think he had to go off, but it's just there was so many errors leading up to that. Why did it take 2 or 3 efforts to stop the bleeding? It was just silly.
Yeah. De Ligt was very good, by the way. Johnny Evans, I always feel, especially with Evans, it's like a backhanded compliment. It's like, oh well, he's 35. We didn't need him. Oh, sorry, we shouldn't have needed a 35, 36-year-old. We won't be relying on him full time, and he's doing good for what's expected of him. That's kind of like the backhanded thing that you get from him. But he was very, very good. Again, he's been very good in all the games that he's played this season, and runs himself into the ground because of his age. But it's no longer a sort of thing where you say he's doing good, considering the circumstances, considering the fact that it was short-term signing, and considering the fact of his age. It's not considering all of that. He's been the best choice in there. Like in that circumstance and putting Martinez to left back because he's left-footed was the most sensible thing that we've done in weeks to bring that balance out to the side. Probably forced, by the way, not a choice, but probably forced by Mazraoui's the thing that he's been through over the international break. So he's had to tinker with that, and actually having balance was so subtle but so significant to the way that it helped United play. And Evans came in on the left-hand side of the defence and was absolutely magnificent. The thing is, United are the goals that we're conceding have been farcical, but we aren't letting in quite anywhere near the same amount of chances as we were last season. And I think that is to do with the structure of the defence, whether that's been De Ligt and Martinez or De Ligt and Evans, and they were so good. We've got a comment coming about Rashford. We'll come to him in a moment.
Just before we go to that one, Wayne, what made me more confident going into that game was that there's times when Ten Hag does things that you think, what is he thinking here? With the amount of injuries we were going into that game, I was a little bit concerned about what he was going to do. But like you said earlier on, putting Martinez out on the left was the most sensible and obvious thing to do, but we don't tend to do that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I seen the lineup and the defense, I'm like, I'm happy with that, because there is an opportunity for Ten Hag to just do stuff that just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And Mazraoui being off, I going by what the media was saying, he was going to be out for a while. So I was surprised to even see him on the bench.
Yeah.
And to make the sensible choice of putting the left-footed player out on the left, it it did surprise me a bit that the right decision was made. And I was pretty confident going into the game then. Because there's always something every other week where you just shake your head. You're just like, what is he doing? But this was the most sensible thing, and it was a good foundation to build from.
So if you look at that side, you would say Mazraoui, Shaw, Ugarte, Mainu, still 4 players off your strongest side. Would you say that that's baby steps then, or the sort of low-key performance? Because it's Brentford, we've won 2-1. Do you know what I mean? We've still seen some of the errors.
Brentford haven't been the easiest team for us over the years. They really haven't. And Frank seems to have our ticket punched at times, and coming to Old Trafford lately for all these teams, they stand a chance. So I was happy with the win. But the big improvement we've had on last year, even though there's some games where I'm completely baffled about how things are going, is that we can sit here and say that was a good, strong performance in the second half. We played well at times, and we still have 4 first-team players out now. That was the bane of our existence, season and a half ago when we just constantly had players out. But that said, we were still able to put out a pretty strong side there against Brentford and still have potentially 4 first-team players not even in the squad. It is a little bit concerning that 1 or 2 of them are picking up injuries all the time. But for me, it is good progress, and but my judgment on Ten Hag for the rest of the season is still out, considering how we started. I think that was our first win in 6 or something. So I'll take the win every single day, but I hope we can move on from there, because we got 2 very tough games coming up.
Yeah, we'll talk about them in a minute. Obviously, it's 1 win in isolation. It's the context of what follows. Is, as Paul would be saying if he's you, it's not about what you did, it's about what you do next. I'm not saying we're not Paul Parker, but we've got airlines like him, so we can pretend that we know.
My wavy bangs.
Paul, we could choose to grow hair, Paul and I, if we chose to go down that route, but
prove it.
We've got more dignity than you, or maybe not. I don't know. Patrick says credit where it's due. Rashford was far improved in terms of tracking back and work rate. Another 20+ games with that same application, please. Maybe there is something to be said about the balance that's provided by the left back there. Like Dalot plays as a central defensive midfielder, and Martinez wasn't really doing that. Yeah, at times he was coming into the middle, but he's comfortable there. Dalot's not a holding midfielder. He's not Philip Lahm, so he's not going to be, he can't go and play that role with the same kind of comfort. So maybe having Martinez, having a left footer there is fundamental to that.
That was a huge improvement on the left. There really was, from a balance standpoint. Dalot just, there's times he just wanders off in the midfield, and teams suss that out pretty quickly, and they put a lot of pressure on that left side.
Yeah. The 2 goals then, you've already talked about Garnacho's goal. Really, really good to see Rashford's cross. We know that he's got that in him. He had that in his first couple of seasons. I remember in the run to the Europa League final he played, I'm talking 2017 here under Mourinho, he played some games on the right, and his crossing you could see was very, very good. And the move for the second goal, if you watch the replays, some of the replays, you can't even see the deftness of Bruno's touch. And we really needed to see something from Bruno, because he's had a post-season so far. You want to see something that says, I'm convinced that he can play in this system. And there was there. You mentioned Højlund's hold-up play. I didn't really think it was that. I think when we tried to play like that in the first half, I felt he was struggling. But then when he had a period where, or maybe a conversation had been had at half time where they said, don't play into his feet, play to him on the turn, because he turned that defence maybe 3 or 4 times to the point where I was laughing that it was almost like Anthony's spinny trick when he first came to club. He was doing it that often. It's like, all right. But obviously it was effective for United because it was moving us 20 yards up the pitch. And obviously he showed great confidence to score the goal in which he did. And that, I think you said there about having him in rather than Xerxes there. It's not criticism on Xerxes. It's actually a compliment to Højlund, right? The fact that he scored and looked really confident in there because he's not really looked like that in the first few games since he's been back. So more of that, please. 2 really good goals, really, in the way that they were executed.
Yeah, they were. I mean, talk about the Garnacho one first. I mean, the to be fair to Rashford, and as I've said many times on this, Rashford for me is still, he's one transfer window away from being sold. In my opinion, I think I'm still not convinced Marcus Rashford's going to get back to the Marcus Rashford we had, under Jose and people like that, and especially under Van Gaal. But to be fair to him, he has provided crosses like that earlier in the season, and our strikers couldn't finish their dinner. Let's be honest. So they go kind of like they kind of disappeared into the darkness because no one's on the end of it. But that cross are absolutely phenomenal, and the finish itself was obviously unbelievable, and it's something that we hope that Garnacho moves on from as well, because he's an immense talent. He really is, and I think we got to make sure that we find a balance with him and Rashford, because as we know, they swap wings for this game. Rashford seemed to be the more preferred on the left, Garnacho on the right. Now we switched them off. So what do we do at this point? Do we leave it as is for Fenerbahce and West Ham? It's difficult to say, but Marcus Rashford is starting to get into a rhythm, and I hope he does get back, to the player that we know we can be. But
yeah,
I still have my doubts. I really do. I just feel that it was good on Saturday, but unfortunately, he's one of the first players to put the head down when things are not going right. You're right about Bruno Fernandes. It's been a disappointing season for him so far. We're early into it though. But that flick was just unbelievable. It really was. Like you said, you had to watch it back to see it, because it was unbelievable. The finish itself is a finish of a striker that is confident. You look at Xerxes and the chances that he has. He's a striker that's not confident. I still don't believe he's a striker, to be honest. I don't think we should be using him as that. But I understand why it comes out. I think he's an exceptional talent. I really do. I've watched him in some of the games, especially live. You just see how he moves around the park, how he moves around the pitch. That, obviously the camera's not following him, it's following the ball. I think he's a phenomenal player, but he lacks confidence right now. And it's difficult because how do you get confidence? You get confidence by playing week in, week out. Højlund's is gonna take that spot there. They're not going to drop Fernandes, but we do have an opportunity to drop him in there against Fenerbahce and the next couple of games that Bruno was out, and give it a try. But I think the 2 goals were absolutely phenomenal. They really were. It's been a long time since we scored 2 really good goals in the same game. But yeah, the balance was right from back to front, which surprised me a little bit. And I don't want to keep bashing Ten Hag, but like I said, there's weeks where he just makes decisions that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. But I think this match he got it bang on, he got it spot on. And I think he's around for they weren't going to get rid of him after the Spurs game. It seems like he's going to be around for a while. But getting back to the 2 goals, absolutely phenomenal. Garnacho, he's just a man at the moment, and he just keeps driving at people, and that's what I like. Every time he gets the ball, it's just attack.
Yeah, Højlund. The goal reminded me a bit of. This is niche. You'll have to go digging for this one, but Giggs against Forest or Middlesbrough, FA Cup 1999. Literally same net, same kind of, gets through behind the defence and lofts the goalkeeper. It looks like a carbon copy of that. And they did the Kobe Mainu goal last year with, like United did the socials, the comparison with Makeda's goal. Do it with Giggs's against Middlesbrough in the FA Cup in '99 for Oyland's goal, because it's almost identical. I suppose when you see like 4,000 goals, a couple will look quite similar. Like that penalty looked exactly the same. Cantona's 2 penalties in the FA Cup final in '94. Patrick says the midfield 3 versus Brentford are all 30 years plus. I'm not sure they manage 3 games a week. Well, they've been trying to, haven't they? The sooner Mainu will go to Mount are successfully integrated back into the team, the better. Yeah, maybe so. Definitely Mount. Like Dave said, it's going to be interesting to see how he lines up on is it Thursday against Fenerbahce? Because
it's Thursday, isn't it? No, is it Wednesday? I don't know.
I mean, this is the thing, right? Our frame of reference is we've got 2 frames of reference, really. If you want to see how to compete against City and win something, you've got, unfortunately, Liverpool as a frame of reference. And then if you want to look at, our own, you've got Sir Alex. It's recent enough in the memory that you look at that, and you look at that period between 1989 and 91 or 92, and you never say, well, there was a definite light bulb moment where you felt a change had definitely happened. Everyone looks at Cantona as the catalytic moment because you saw the change that he brought to the team, and then you say, all right, we look like we're a team that could win the league. It was gradual before that. So you're not going to see it in a game against Brentford. You might see, over a run of fixtures or something. I'm not saying convinced that we'll win the league or anything like that, but I mean the change in trajectory to going into the right place. Because, I mean, like I was saying earlier, a couple of weeks ago, we were convinced that we weren't going to be sat here talking about Ten Hag as manager, really. And I'm all for giving the incumbent manager more time, and when there's evidence for it, there's enough evidence of positive things, and the balance is always whether or not you think, will it run away from him, or is there still something to build on? And clearly the people around think there is something to build on. That could come, like that Dan was saying earlier, in that run of home games that we've got to build momentum, to build wins and victories, but a couple of difficult away games to navigate before that. The first one coming at Fenerbahce in the Europa League. Mourinho will love nothing more than to twist the knife into one of his successors, probably still wanting. And even in any interview that you see him talking about United, it seems that there's something still rankling him. And, can understand why, really, because that last transfer window, when it seemed like he was going to get the back in, and he was ended with Dallo and Fred and Lee Grant or something like that, and they weren't the players that we needed at that time. We needed defenders and defensive midfielders, and really another attacker as well. We needed a lot of reinforcement in a time that we didn't get it, and it seemed like almost like Woodward sacked Louis van Gaal 6 months too late. It seemed like he'd already decided that this was the end, so give it enough rope, which is not any way that seemed like a good way to run the club at the time. And it did run into disaster, but Mourinho always sort of, I wouldn't say dines out on that. He's got enough to dine out upon, but he feels, you always feel like there's a protection of his reputation going on, that he didn't contribute to the mess as much as he did. So he likes to sour the pot a little bit with regards to what's happening now. And obviously he's been back to Old Trafford and enjoyed a 6-1 win against Ole. Now, this time round, with the beautiful way that the Europa League's run, there'll be no return to Old Trafford for him, but more intimidating, really, to go to Fenerbahce, and the kind of atmosphere that he'll quite happily encourage. It's going to be a very difficult one for United, but this is a big test for Ten Hag, right? This is a big test that United really have to go to this professional performance, try not to be overawed by the atmosphere, which is likely to be spicy, to say the least, and try and get a professional win out of it. And United, in this personality, I don't know. That's not criticism. I just feel like we're not right there at that moment in time. So how do you best navigate this? Because he'll make changes again, And like you said, on Saturday, the balance seemed right. So what do we do for this game? It's going to be a big test.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of things going against us. First of all, Ten Hag's record in Europe is deplorable. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. And now we're going to for Manchester United, and now we're going to like one of the toughest away grounds probably in Europe. It's going to be very intimidating, even without Mourinho there. But you add the Mourinho effect, it's like putting petrol on fireworks before you light them. Josie's he's gonna rile up that crowd, and it has an effect. The other thing that's going against us is that when Mourinho wants a result, he normally gets a result. He really does. And people could say, well, why doesn't he get a result in every game? Well, the circumstances that drive his way of thinking for certain games. I mean, you go all the way back to the Steven Gerrard slip game, with Chelsea, and Mourinho went there and he won. And there's numerous ones over the years where if Mourinho wants to get a result, he'll get one. I don't see us coming away from. If we come away from there with a point, we should be happy, because, like you said, Mourinho loves nothing more than putting one over on his former employers, as if he had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that it all went to shit, both on the pitch and internally in the club. He burnt everything to the ground. So yeah, Jose be definitely up for this one. I was kind of happy when I seen that we did get Fenerbahce, because I like those type of games. But it's going to be a very, very, very difficult game to navigate. Fred obviously plays there as well. And Fenerbahce are not a bad side at all. They're really not. And Mourinho will have them right up for this. And the crowd, as we know, can be very intimidating over there. We spoke to Paul about that many times, about that infamous match with Cantona. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really, really tough game. And then also, the fact that Ten Hag doesn't have a great record in Europe at United so far doesn't lead me to believe that we're coming away with 3 points.
What do you reckon to Mourinho? I mean, look back now; it's long enough in the memory banks that I think we can look at it objectively. People say that we were closer, that we were winning and everything like that. And I look at him and I think the same with Rooney, really, in a different kind of way. That he went to Roma and things didn't work out at Roma, and now he's gone to Fenerbahce. He's almost like willingly allowing his stock to deplete. Do you know what I mean? It feels weird because he always seemed like a top tier manager, and maybe that started with going to Spurs, and it probably did because like being sacked from United. What happens after that? You do have to go down, but I wonder. The point I'm trying to make, Dave, and it might sound a bit weird because when did he take over at Spurs? 2019. 2019.
Yeah, it was during that COVID period, all right.
Okay, so 2019. Then he's gone to Roma. Now Fenerbahce. Say he'd been sacked at United and not had another job. Do you think that people would speak more highly of him? Do you think his stock would be higher? Like Rooney, for example, if he'd done the thing he'd done at Derby, and then went to MLS and, like, say, came back from DC United the first time when everyone was like, kind of, he left there because it was a bit of a mess there. If he had stayed out of work and not gone to Birmingham, because he always talks about wanting the United job or something like that. Now you couldn't see that happening because of what happened at Birmingham. But the argument is, if he had not gone to Birmingham and not gone to Plymouth, although things are going a bit better at Plymouth, that if he had stayed out of work, his stock would be higher. I feel like that with Mourinho, right? I feel like he's almost contributed to his own decline, and that doesn't really reflect favourably on the track record that he had going into that, because there's a strong enough argument to say United won trophies, they finished in second, and everyone always says, like, with further evidence, that claim that he made, that it was a bit silly, but getting to second with United was the best achievement of his career. With the squad that he had, I feel like if he'd if he'd remained sacked because of the mess that was going on at United at the time, and remain unemployed, I should say, that maybe people would look at him as a better manager than what they do now because of what's happened since.
I think there's the way I look at Mourinho is twofold. I think one, he's a really, really good manager. He really is. There's no doubt. You know, you look at his record, you look at the teams he's gone to, the stuff he's won. He's won it in numerous countries. You know, he's won 2 Champions Leagues, 2 different clubs. Pretty difficult thing to do. And in some of these clubs, he hasn't been bankrolled like he was at Chelsea.
Yeah.
So he is a really, really, really good coach. But I think when people think of Jose Mourinho, especially club owners and stuff like that, they do look at how he leaves clubs, and he just doesn't leave with dignity. He just tears everything down. You know, that whole thing of my greatest achievement of finishing second, that was my greatest achievement, is having a dig at the club. It's not saying that I'm so great that I finished second with this team. It's clearly having a dig at the club, and he still talks about it. He's a very bitter man, and that's the other side of Jose. And you and I have had this discussion many, many times. When people talk about Solskjaer and the job that he did, they basically just think about the job he did on the pitch. And what they don't understand is the job he actually did inside that club. He had to build that club again from the inside, because Mourinho burnt the whole thing to the ground. You know, I brought this conversation up with you many times before, being on that US tour with United at that time. And the club was just like everyone was depressed. All the players were depressed, the staff were depressed, security were depressed. Everyone was on like tenterhooks because Mourinho was just a bad person. You know, when things are going wrong, he just blames everyone but himself. And when I come back from that tour, if you remember, you and I were talking, I said, this is not the club that we know. This club is rotten from the inside because of this man. And this is why I will always stand up for Ole. I think in the end, Ole had to go. I'll never ever change my opinion of that. I think he lost the team. He lost his way. He lost his confidence, and that was it. But you know, for many, they don't understand what Ole had to do. He had to build that club, like pretty similar to Ferguson when he came to the club. It was in disarray, you know, from top to bottom, and he built it up. Unfortunately, Ole didn't get the backing that he probably should have got in many ways. But no manager really did. I know we've spent a lot of money, each manager, and that argument can be thrown out there. But when you look at the details of what we spent it on, it's clear that the club had a bigger hand in what the coach was, who the coach was buying, because it affected the bottom dollar. It affected the fact that, well, if we sign X player, you know, the Paul Pogba saga, that whole thing, well, let's be honest, Manchester United brought him in because of what he would sell off the pitch and not what he could do on the pitch. And we had too many of them down the years, and Ole suffered with that as well. But, you know, Mourinho burnt that club to the ground. He really did, both on the pitch and off the pitch. I still think, you know, he'll still, you know, be remembered as a very, very, very good coach. And because his record, you can't go from club to club to club, albeit, you know, now he's on a downhill spiral, but that happens. No manager, you know, few and far between, other than my, you know, the guy that I want at our club for the past 7-8 years, Ancelotti. Other than his stint at Everton, you know, he's one of those rare managers that can go to a club and win stuff. Mourinho is that. I mean, he went to Inter Milan, he won the Champions League. You know, the work he did at Porto. You know, with Real, you know, there's always a question mark over when you manage a club like Real and Barcelona, because you have the best resources, right? It's like when Pep was in Germany. Come on, you know, they brag about what he won there, and you're like, you're having a laugh. You know, Bayern were winning everything. But I think Mourinho is a very, very good coach, but there's a sinister side to him. When he sees it starting to go wrong, he burns everything down. It'd be interesting to see how the Fenerbahce fans react to him when this goes sour, because it will at some point. And then he'll start blaming internal, you know, he'll start blaming the fans, he'll start blaming everyone. But yeah, for me, when I look at Jose, very, very good coach, very, very bitter man.
Yeah, you're quite right. I mean, it inevitably will go sour, unless, I mean, no, there's the other route that he did at Inter, which is restore his reputation and get a move to a bigger club without getting sacked. No,
I don't see him. I don't see.
He could leave there a hero. That could happen.
I don't know, because, you know, I thought that's what was going to happen at Roma when they won the I don't know what that competition's called, the
Conference League. Yeah,
and then it went sour. You know, with Fenerbahce, he could win a trophy. It always goes sour with Jose. What club has he ever walked away from? And it's been, He's still talking about getting sacked from Spurs, a couple of weekends before their League Cup. I mean, get over it, mate. I think Mourinho's next job is an international job. That's the way this is going. I don't see him going. I don't see him stepping up. I don't see like a Milan or a PSG or anyone like that coming in from. I really don't. I think his next job is probably to take over the Portugal national team. To be honest, so.
Yeah. But yeah, like we're both suspicious about whether or not we can get a result there on Thursday because of his ability to engineer that kind of thing. Different Man United manager topic this time round, although he's not at this club either. West Ham away on Sunday. David Moyes left in the summer, and for the second time in recent years, he's left West Ham, and they're looking back, wondering if the grass was greener with David Moyes. Had some sobering defeats this season, a couple of wins, but really not enough to hang your hat on. Ulen Lopetegui is their manager. Not long ago, he was being linked with us for I think when Ten Hag was being brought in, or maybe even when Ralph Rangnick was hired. His name was in the frame at least. A difficult start for them. Kudus got sent off at the weekend as well, so he'll be absent.
Kudos to him.
Well, he's definitely a player who's caused us problems in the past. So a player will be very happy to be missing, especially considering the fact that our fullbacks are probably our most vulnerable part on the pitch. So West Ham do seem to be in that kind of vulnerable position that makes it the best time to go and play them. Obviously, always a difficult place for us because of the relationship that we've got, or the rivalry that they've manufactured with us over the years, which now does exist. Unfortunately, it's there. The Paulins, David Beckham, but for some reason, West Ham hate Manchester United. That will engineer the atmosphere again. So 2 tough atmospheres for us to go through. But again, like we said earlier, this is a test for Ten Hag. That I'm really attesting not the most intimidating of guises in which these tests could be, right? So Fenerbahce, they're not like dominant European powerhouse. It's not Mourinho at his classic best. It's Mourinho with a chance at really putting one over him. West Ham, this is a chance at going there and turning in a good show as well. So really intimidating, but still favourable ways in approaching these away games for Ten Hag. So games where you can look at them and say, there is a way that we can get results. And really on Sunday, obviously it depends on what happens on Thursday. You would think that United are going there more confident than West Ham of getting a result.
Yeah, but it's it's probably two of the I won't say the worst away games we could hope for at this stage, because when we start to get a win under our belt, but the circumstances around the 2 away games, I'd rather they were separated, 6 months apart. Going to Fenerbahce is going to be a tough game, like I said, and then going to West Ham, who have manufactured this rivalry since '95, that they have some kind of thing with Manchester United. But it's going to be tough. I mean, it's a lot tougher if it was at Upton Park. I think their new stadium is a little bit less intimidating than it was when we used to go to Upton Park. But nonetheless, West Ham are going to be a tough nut to crack. But I am confident of coming away from West Ham with a win. I really am. I don't think they're in any great shape at the moment. They got smashed the weekend. But unfortunately for Manchester United, and this has always been the case, teams can start to build their season on one win against Manchester United. So, but I just don't see that happening this weekend. I don't think West Ham are in any great shape, and then as you said, with Kudos missing, that's a big plus for United. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Thursday, with Sunday in mind. He's obviously not going to keep the same teams. I would like to see the same team that started against Brentford, against West Ham, but that leaves it open to what's he going to do with a couple of our. Defensively, he's probably going to shake it up a little. Mazraoui, I can see coming back in. Dalot's going back out on the left, and I can see Dalit and Martinez starting in the middle again. I just don't. I think it's too early for Johnny Evans to be thrown out there again. And the one player that we haven't really mentioned, which has been having a stellar last few games, is Eriksen. A player that really, when everyone's fit, won't play. But, he has kept his place over Ugarte and a few others over the past few weeks, which has surprised me. And he's quietly going about doing his stuff. He really is. And he's actually getting better with each game. So I'm happy for him. He's a player I've always liked. Even when, in the days at Spurs, when we had an opportunity to sign him, I was eager that we could get him in. We didn't. He went off to, I think, Inter Milan at that time. But yeah, it's going to be. I am confident of West Ham, even though it's going to be. It always is a tricky place for United to go. So.
Yep. And just before we go, we've got a guest who's joined us all the way from Cyprus, Mr. Paul Parker. Cyprus or Crete, I can't remember which one he's in, but he's here with us now. Just before we were about to go, so Paul, obviously we've talked about Manchester United's win at Brentford. We've talked about their trip to Fenerbahce and their trips to West Ham. What did you think of the weekend result, obviously, and performance? There's a lot in there to unpack with regards to how it's going to affect the following week as well. But Ten Hag came into that match in a lot of pressure. We were talking in the weeks before that we might not even be in a job by the time we're next time on a podcast. Was it a performance that convinced you that there's more time in the tank for Ten Hag?
It's a strange one. Anyway, I should say good morning, gentlemen, by the way. I do apologise for being this little bit late, but out here coaching kids and they couldn't stop talking, and then their parents wanted to talk more, so I got held up a little bit. Every game he goes into is a pressure game. If it's not coming from people in the stadium, it's not coming from within the club or the people, the hierarchy, it's coming from everyone out there who just, for some reason, wants this man out of a job. It's become a bit of a culture now just to get someone out of their job. But I'm quite pleased in a way. Initially, it didn't start well, the game, I must say. But overall, there's enough there to say there is something to work with. The only problem is that another game and there's a change. That's the thing. There's been no consistency for the best bit of consistency I've seen is from when he first arrived, really, and that was built off the back of the two centre halves at that given time. But it's just about the next game. That's what everyone's got. Look, you just don't know what you're going to get, and I really hope that it works out in the next two, especially the one next weekend, because it's horrible for me when Manchester United go to London Stadium and they get beaten. That isn't the horrible part as such. The horrible part is when people walk up to me and start wanting to tell me the truth about how awful Manchester United were that afternoon or whenever it is. And that's the strange thing. People look at me and they're actually looking at me with sympathy because how bad Manchester United are. So I'm really hoping that in midweek, because it's a big game midweek, because obviously the manager comes into mind of the opponents.
Yeah.
And of course, West Ham away, a side that is seriously struggling for an identity at this moment in time. Disillusioned fans already. It's horrendous. I'm out here in Cyprus with somebody, and I come in here and I'm mentioning West Ham here. I don't mention it anywhere near her because it makes her blood boil, because they're poor. They are serious. They've got nothing there. And for Manchester United to walk away next weekend with nothing, Wayne, that tells me then, and I'm gonna have to put my hand up and say it has to change, because they've got nothing there that should hurt at all.
Yeah, Kudus suspended. What do you think of, this is the second time in a few years that David Moyes, we were talking about managers and their stock rising and falling, like Mourinho taking the Spurs and Roma jobs when he was seen to be like a big fish. As you called Dave this week, by the way, I did tell Dave that you called him a big fish. I'm glad I got that one in.
Grass.
Yeah, I am a grass.
At least I was on time this time, my first week. And then, Paul Parker just waltzes in and, it says, where's the big fish?
Paul's on time. He's on time. Paul's on time. He's just on Cyprus time. That's what it is. Yeah. But we were talking about managers' stock rising and falling. David Moyes it never is his stock higher than when he just leaves West Ham, because West Ham struggle. The grass looks greener when, well, it looks like it's not greener when he's there, but then as soon as he goes, it's kind of like, oh, well, we had a good thing under David Moyes. And, with no Kudus at the weekend, it's like the best time for United to go there. But kind of like you're saying, if they don't get a good result, it's the worst time for United to go there, isn't it? So it's really tricky time for Ten Hag.
Oh, it is. I mean, you mentioned about Kudus. I'm one of those, when I like somebody, what they do, I keep talking about them. Kudus is, for me, absolutely, he's everything that I think about football. And the thing that I see in him is just his work ethic. And he's a player who could have played in any team I played in the sense of he plays like a player from the 80s and from the 90s, but he's got that everyday player of today's technical ability. He's got honestly bundles and bundles. He shouldn't be there, and he got sent off at the weekend for the first time. And every time I watch him and I watch how much he gives, the battering he takes, never falls over, does not go down and try to nick fouls at all, doesn't do any of the rolling about. Maybe he should do, but I wouldn't want to see him doing it, because it's a waste of a human being if he went and done that. And then all of a sudden, and the thing that done it, he lost it. His head was gone, and he's got every right to do that with the players around him, because a lot of them can't click. They're just not up to the way he's working. But he picked the wrong person, because Van der Ven, the man's an angel. He's a beast, but he's an angel. There's no aggression around him. When he wins the ball, he wins it strong and fair. He's not, and Van der Ven's got up, and be honest, he's the last man you want to grip hold of you, by the way. But I think he had that moment after, he's gone, what did I go and do? I picked on the wrong person. There's no malice. So everything come out there from what he's taken on from last season and the way it's been this season, especially the way the manager is. West Ham's strength was 3 players: Paquetá, Bowen, Kudus.
Yeah.
The 3 of them have never hit the ground running together in one game all season. Well, last season, if they played 40 games together, 38 of them, they was incredible. And I think I must have said it, Wayne, with you and with Dave. Those front 3 playing for Manchester United last season were better than any front 3 they've had for so long. Even now, you put those front 3 as a name, you put what they've achieved together, and then you've got something better than what United have got this season already. So he is a massive miss for everything about West Ham. Paquetá has gone backwards under this manager. He seems to have taken away. I'll tell you what, it's amazing how you can take away someone's nationality. He's taken away the Brazilian out of him. He was the only Brazilian I've seen in quite a few seasons who actually is playing like a Brazilian. I remember from the 70s and from the 80s.
Yeah.
But he's taken it away from him. He's made him into kind of like a Russian. He's just virtually just a robot. He's not the same person. Bowen is not the same player. I don't know if it's a captaincy or the fact of Paquetá and Kudus have lost their way. Defensively, they've got the lad from Taribo. I'm looking at him at the weekend, and I'm watching that game, and it was again, I had to sit and watch a game with a missus. Always hard work when they're getting beaten, they're poor. Taribo, look at him. He's got his socks down by his ankles. He's got his shorts up to his waist. I'm going, you're a centre half. You're a centre half. You're not somebody who's on the beach trying to get sun on their thighs. That's a centre half. No presence at all. So I'm thinking to myself, if Højlund can just lift his game that little bit more again, physically up against Taribo, whatever you call him Tornado, I think the way he's playing. Højlund can outstrength him. As long as Højlund understands, relates to the size of him and stays on his feet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. No presence, but he definitely gave Spurs a present at the weekend, didn't he, with that own goal. Not the best to be best thing to be doing in that kind of circumstance. But yeah, that's it for this week, guys. I'm going to put a link in the description as well. Dave he didn't know that I was going to bring this up, but his daughter Alana is raising funds for a service called St. Aidan's Services in Wexford. It's a day centre for people with learning difficulties. Dave, I mean, you could tell a little bit more about the services and what they do, but Alana's fundraising for that. She's just doing amazing stuff at the moment. She's doing really well. But we're going to put a link in the description to the pod as well. If you can support that or share it, would be most appreciated. Dave, do you want to tell a little bit more about what the service does before we go?
Yeah, it's basically a day service for young adults with special needs. Alana's autistic. She actually watches the show every week. Only watches it because Paul's on it, by the way. That's the only reason she watches it. And then, after the show, I'll get criticized for how bad myself and Wayne were and how great Paul was. Every week. Wayne can tell you this. Every week. That's all we hear. And sometimes she'll pop in with a comment, some kind of like word comment that she'll put in there. But yeah, it's basically it's our day services they provide for young adults. Just basically life skills, out and about skills, how to navigate basic stuff like going to the shop, crossing the street, all that type. So once a year, they haven't done this in a while because of COVID, but they're having a fundraiser. And all this week we're trying to raise as much funds as we can, and she's doing pretty well. So there's an I donate link it's going to be in the I don't know whether you're going to put it on YouTube or whether you're going to put it on Twitter, but I know it's out there right now. But I appreciate that, Wayne. Yeah, as much as we can earn, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, Alana is an amazing individual, even if she has the wrong order of preference. The right order of preference, right? Paul's the star of the show, and as right he should be, and as rightly Alana points that out. And thanks very much for, Paul was on for 10 minutes, said everything in a much better way than we said in the preceding 50, Dave. So what does that tell us? It tells us a lot.
Well, Paul, you obviously know Wayne spoke for 48 minutes of that. So.
Yeah, just about. I will say the Russian reference that I was going to say, which I didn't make in the podcast, should have been made for Delete looking like Ivan Drago, but I already did that on social media with the blood that was pouring down his face on Saturday. Yeah, that's it for this week, guys. We'll be back next week to talk about those 2 away games. I mean, good grief. West Ham and Fenerbahce, which, in an ordinary football calendar don't seem that bad, but at this moment in time, considering everything Eric Ten Hag's up against and United are up against, 2 real tests to carry it to, and hopefully we'll be here talking about 2 good results for United next week, because as West Ham have proven, change is not always the best thing to advocate for. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And if you can support and share the link for St. Aidan's Services, would really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Goodbye. Take care.